Welcome everyone. We'll have our usual format with a class from Bindaji. Bindaji, thank you so much, very, very much today, especially for being with us. And we'll turn off the hand raising and chat in a moment, but we'll have a Q&A afterwards. I think we're at a really special point at the beginning of the chapter 2. So for those of you who haven't begun reading it, it's in the top of the chat, and you'll want to go to page 301 in the page numbering of the book to really see what chapter 2 of this Upanishad is. And then Bindaji has put together the mantras, also in Sanskrit and English, up above in the drop box. And just a reminder for the sake of the replays that they're here in this house for quite a few Upanishads and a few other teachings, but also Bindaji has a YouTube channel, and you can find it under the handle at Advaita Talks, but also the name of the channel itself, if you're looking for it, has changed, and it's called Advaita Retold, which was something Bindaji decided to name it, and I think that's beautiful because that's exactly what he's doing in the modern day. So again, Bindaji and everybody, thank you so much, and let's begin the class.
Thank you, Atmisha. नमो ब्रह्मादिभ्यो ब्रह्मविद्यासम्प्रदायकर्तृभ्यो वंशऋषिभ्यो महद्भ्यो नमो गुरुभ्यः सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम् श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पाद शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणम् सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। अथ द्वितीया ब्रह्मानन्दवल्ली शान्तिमन्त्रम्। ॐ सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। ॐ ब्रह्मविदाप्नोति परम् तदेशाभ्युक्ता सत्यं ज्ञानमनन्दं ब्रह्म यो वेद निहितं गुहायां परमे व्योमन् सोऽश्नुते सर्वान् कामान् सः ब्रह्मणा विपश्चितेति तस्मात् वा ये तस्मादात्मन आकाशः सम्भूतः आकाशाद् वायुः वायोरग्निः अग्नेरापः अद्य पृथिवी पृथिव्या औषधयः औषधेभ्योऽन्नम् अन्नात् पुरुषः स वा एष पुरुषोन्नरसमयः तस्येदमेव शिरः अयं दक्षिणः पक्षः अयमुत्तरः पक्षः अयमात्मा इदं पुच्छं प्रतिष्ठा तदप्येष श्लोको भवति। प्रथम अनुवाक. So in the last Friday's class, we discussed on the सजातीयेभ्यः एव निवर्तकानि विशेषणानि विशेषस्य लक्षणं तु सर्वतः एव अतः अवकाशप्रदातृ आकाशमिति लक्षणार्थं च वाक्य इत्येतत् अवोचाम। सत्यादिशब्दा न परस्परं सम्बन्धेन्ति परार्थत्वात् विशेषार्था हि ते अतः एव एकैको विशेषणशब्दः परस्परं निरपेक्षो ब्रह्मशब्देन सम्बध्यते सत्यं ब्रह्म ज्ञानं ब्रह्म अनन्दं ब्रह्म इति. What does it say? Just to recap so that you have not forgotten what was discussed in the last class. Satyadi shabdah na parasparam sambandhyate. Satyadi, Satyam Jnanam Anantam. These three words, na parasparam sambandhyate. There is no what you call relationship between these words. Satyam is independent, Jnanam is independent, Anandam is independent. There is no sambandha or correlation between them. Why? Pararthatvat. Each word is giving a specific meaning for them. Visheshyartha hi te. But if you take it as adjectives instead of nouns, Satyam Brahma, Jnanam Brahma, Anandam Brahma iti. Ataha, therefore, eva ekaiko visheshana shabdha parasparam nirapeksho Brahma shabdena sambandhyere. Only when we consider them as adjectives of Brahman, Lakshanartha, Vakyartham. So here we have to understand that it is not the Parartham, means each word has got a independent meaning, but when it becomes adjective, Visheshyartha, then because they becomes related, because they all of them are indicating one Brahma by the word Satyam Brahma, Jnanam Brahma, Anandam Brahma. So the Satyam Brahma, there is one word which is as a adjectives and the noun. The Satyam it becomes the adjective, Brahma becomes the noun. Same way, Jnanam Brahma, there Jnanam becomes adjectives, Brahma becomes the noun. Anantam, same way, Brahma, Anandam Brahma, Anandam becomes the adjective, Brahma becomes the noun. Why it is Samanartaka? Because both of them are in the same vibhakti or the same case, first case and singular. Therefore, Satyam, Jnanam, Anandam, Brahma, when you add it, you have to break it up Satyam Brahma, Satyam Jnanam Brahma, Anandam Brahma, like that. Because they are all indicating to one thing called Brahma. Now, in the next paragraph, Acharya is now going into the explanation of what is it means by or how we should understand that. Satyamiti yad rupena yad nishchitam tad rupam na vyavicharati tat satyam. Now this is a very important one. We have to remember and make, if possible, make it by heart. He is defining what is satyam. Satyam iti. It's starting with satyam. What does it? Yad rupena. In the which in a particular rupa, yet nishchitam, when we have convinced about it, tad rupam na vyavicharati. That aspect, what we have convinced, when it doesn't change or when it doesn't undergo any modification or changes, that is called satyam. So, when we have a understanding that Brahman Atman, when it is satyam, this nature of Brahman or Atman cannot undergo any change or any modification. Na vikara, na vyabhichara. Both vyabhichara means change, vikara means modification. So na vyapicharati means vyapicharati includes vyapichara and vikara. That's satyam. That is what is called the truth or the real nature of a thing. Now, the example which we have in the typical Advaita is that the rope and the snake. Under no circumstances the rope has ever undergone any change. Before also it was rope, When it was being perceived as snake, also it was rope. After knowing that there is no snake, that time also we realize it is rope only. So, Trikala Abhadita, in all the three times of past, present, and future, this aspect of the rope undergoing a change is not happening. Therefore, tadna vyapicharati. That doesn't undergo any change. Whereas snake, what we superimposed or we understood as snake in the intervening period, that was not there before, that is not there after. But in between, we are having an apprehension of a snake, and that vyabhicharati, that goes away. Therefore, that is not Satya. So, when it is being referred to Brahma, how should we understand that Brahma na vyabhicharati, that Satyam? How is it called Satyam? Yat rupena yan nishchitam tad rupam vyabhicharati tad anartham iti uchyate. I just explained that what changes or what undergoes modification or changes is called anartham. Here it is very clearly anartham means not satyam. That is the word we have to understand here. Neither we are using the word maya, mithya, avidya, or any of those words. Yad rupena yan nishchidam tad rupam vyabhijarati. When we have understood and nishchidam, we ascertain that it is snake, but it undergoes tad rupam vyabhijarati, that when it is gone, when the light is falling on that, or somebody shows us clearly there is only rope there, that snake is gone. Tad rupam vyabhijarati. Tad anartham iti uchyate. That is what is called opposite of satyam, which is anartham. Ataha vikara anartham. Therefore, vikara, modifications, what we see in the world, is anartham. Again, we are not using maya or avidya here. It is saying it is not real. It is not satyam. For that, he is quoting a Upanishad Vakyam from the Chandogya Upanishad. Vacharampanam vikaro namadeyam mrittigateva satyam. Vacharampanam means vak alampanam, depending upon the names and forms. Vikaraha. Namadeyam is how the names are being given to objects. But in them, the reality is mrittigateva satyam. The mud is the reality. Now, for us, the problem here is that in all these circumstances also, we cannot comprehend any object without its name and form. Even when it is said it is mud only, the mud doesn't appear to us as mud, but it is in the form of a lump or in a form where it can be modified into pot and etc. So there also it is a lump of mud which is the nama and rupa of the mud, which is apprehended by us. We can never think about a mud without name and form. Same way, when it becomes pot or anything else, the name and form of the pot, even though when we know it as it is mud, it is a modification of mud. Our reality feeling, because of the name and form of the pot, is so embedded or established that we transact only with the pot as a reality. Even though we have knowledge that it is made of mud, we don't consider that as mud, because mud also for us is another name and form. But what Chandogya Upanishad says is that Mrittikateva Satyam. Mud is the Satyam. Now, when it is being said Satyam, the mud cannot undergo any Vyabhichara or Vikara. Then only it can become Satyam. Yanna Vyabhicharati Tadrupam Na Vyabhijarati Tat Nishchitam Tat Satyam. That is the definition for Satyam. And here say Mityam Mrittigateva Satyam. in the Chandogya Upanishad. So what does it mean? It is a relative satyam there, because mud as a mud or a lump of clay doesn't change itself even when it is being made into a pot or a lamp or a doll. That vikara, that names and forms of the mud, undergoes and becomes a different things. But mud, even when it is a pot, the mud as a satyam remains in the pot form. The name and form is for the mud and not for the pot. But we consider the pot as a name and form, and we have transactions. But we don't have the satyatvam or the reality of that into the nature of mud, which has not undergone itself any change except for the shape, and we call it as a pot. But even when it is being used as a pot, the muddiness or the nature of mud has not gone through any change. Evam sadeva satyam ityavadharanat. In this way, sadeva saumya idamagra asit. That is how the whole Chandogya Upanishad starts. Sat, that means satyam. Sadeva saumya idamagra asit. It is the sat or the satyam what is remaining from the beginning, and it has only become vacharambanam vikaro namadeyam. That satyam is not undergone any change, even when we have the transactional world for our day-to-day transactions. So there are 9 examples which are being told by Uddalaka to Shvedaketu. Therefore, ataha satyam brahma iti brahma vikara nivartayati. Satyam brahma iti, when it is mentioned here in this mantra as satyam jnanam anandam brahma, this satyam brahma iti, this the statement is brahman vikarat nivartayati. Brahma, which is the noun, which is getting the adjectives of satyam, that brahma vikarat, from the formation of the in the form of the world, the objects of the world, etc. Nivartayati. If it doesn't undergo any change, just as the mud did not undergo any change, even when it is being perceived as the namadeya of pot or clay or lamp or doll, etc. Same way, Brahma vikarat nivartayati. Karyat nivartayati means it doesn't become an effect. That is how we have to understand that. Vikarat nivartayati. Ataha karanatvam praptam brahmanaha. Therefore, karanatvam praptam brahmanaha. So Brahma becomes the cause. Karyat nivartayati. How does it become a cause? When it is not undergoing any change? Because karanasya cha karagatvam vastutvat mridvat achitrupata cha prapta ataha idamuchyate jnanam brahmeti. Now we cannot understand Satyam independently. When it is said that it is the cause or karanatvam praptam, because vikarat nivartayati, there is no way there is formation or variations which are being created out of Brahma. So what happens is that karanasya cha karagatvam. Karagatvam means, see, any object when it is when it is used with the verb, it takes many karaka. Karaka means yatnyatvam, that is activity. When it is an object of a verb, it becomes second case. Dvitiya. If it becomes a causal thing for as a cause for the world to be created, therefore Karanatvam will come. The Tritiya will come. If it is one which is there, Upadana, then where we call it as an instrumental cause for it, not a direct cause for it. Then there is Apadana. From Brahman, the world comes out if we take it that way. Therefore, Karagatum of Brahman becomes the Apadanam or the fifth case. Then there is a sambandha between or a connection between the mud and the pot. Then it is, we say, the pot is made of mud. Same way the world is made of Brahman. When we say that way, then there is the sixth case. Suppose if we say that Brahman is the substratum for everything, then it becomes Saptami, Adhikaranam for this thing. Now, what way will we define Brahman? Therefore, Karanasya cha Karagatvam Vastutvat Mridvat Achit Rupata cha Prapta. So what happens is that if we take it a Karagatvam on the Brahman for any of these cases, then it will become Vastutvat Mridvat Achit Rupata. It will not become Chit, or Achit Rupata means it will not become a conscious thing, because it will be like the mud from which everything comes. The mud has become the pot. Same way Atman and Brahman has become the world. All that the Jadam. The Achitrupada means Jadam. Cha Prapta. So that nature of Brahman, he will be lost and it will be called a Jada. Adaha idam uchyate jnanam brahmedi. To negate that, the Karagatvam or Karanasya Karagatvam, that relationship between the world and the Brahman, to negate any sort of formation of the world from Brahman, if we bring it, that even it won't become Satyam. But when it is told that it is Karagatvam is also not there, or the causation is also not there in any format, either a substratum or from which it comes, or etc. etc. All of them when it comes then it becomes a Jada, because that is how it is, that when from there where it is Brahma, the world is Jada. Therefore, Brahman Jadatvam Prapta Bhavati. Therefore, Jnanam, when it is mentioned, Jnanam is what? Acharya says, Jnanam Nyapti Avabodhaha Bhava Sadhano Jnana Shabdaha Natu Jnana Kartru. What does it mean? Here, Jnanam is Nepti. Nepti is that aspect of consciousness where it is in the purest form, where no Karagatum can be given, no activity can be attributed to that. It is the purest form of consciousness without even capable of knowing or using it for the purpose of knowing. Then we will say, how are we knowing it? We are using manovritti. Our mind is used as a vritti, or the thoughts, which is not jnanam. Actually, that we feel that is jnanam. We are knowing, we are thinking, that is awareness, that is consciousness. Actually speaking, that is nothing like that consciousness or awareness. But we are all thinking that we are conscious, aware, things, knowing everything. But Acharya says that is nothing but karakatvam of Jada Rupa, of the thing which we think that mind, which is a Jada, in that we think that knowing is taking place or awareness is taking place. But this Jnanam, which is the Satyam Jnanam, Anandam Jnanam, is not ever present in the mind. It can never be part of the mind also, as per the explanation which is now. It is going to go into further long description and details. So don't get immediately conclude things, because this is where the Purva Paksha and Samadhana will come, and Shankaracharya will clarify every aspect of the Jnanam and Satyam and what you call Anantam. So don't jump into conclusion. So what does it say? Avabodha. Nepti means avabodha. Avabodha means that in which knowledge, knowing takes place. It is not a substratum. And at the same time, without which no knowing can take place. Now that, how do we understand this? For that, we have to understand that space. In space, there is no activity. But activity of things which are in the space, when it is having motion from one place to another place, we use that it is moved from one space to another space. Actually, there is no activity of space taking place in any movement. It is the object which is depending upon the space which moves, and the kriya or the karma or the activity is of the object which is using the space. And we attribute that movement of the object which occupies the space. When it is moving, we are using it as moved so many kilometers or so many meters or so many this thing. That space is being referred as an effect of movement. But in space, there is no movement. Same is the case with Jnanam. In the Jnanam, everything appears in it. But the mind, when it is comprehending things, we are attributing the activity of mind for comprehending or apprehension of things as that of Jnanam or Avabodha. What does it say? Shankaracharya says, Bhava Sadhana Jnana Shabdaha. Jnana Shabda is a Bhava Sadhana. Bhava Sadhana means it is the aspect of a verb where it existence is the bhava means bhavati. That existence aspect of is what is being explained in the word jnana shabda, not as an activity of knowing. Please understand this very clearly. Jnanam nirma bhava sadhanaha jnana shabdaha. Natu jnana kartru. It is never a doer of knowing. This Satnyanam of Brahman is never doing any activity of knowing. But we attribute the movement of the mind and those things onto the Jnanam and say that it is, we are knowing it, consciousness, awareness, etc., etc. It is just like I told you, that the space and the movement in the space. The space doesn't move, but anything moves in the space, we attribute measures of space by length or width or volume or whatever it is onto the object as saying that space has gone through modification. It is not. So Brahma Visheshanatvat Satyajnanandabhyam Saha. So Brahma Visheshanatvat, when it becomes a Visheshana of Brahman, what? This Jnanam, it is not a Jnana Karta, but it is an adjective for Brahma. But that has to be understood, that that jnanam is also satyam and it is also anantam. We have all awareness, consciousness, and knowing, which is limited in nature. They come and go. They have got time. There is a beginning for the knowledge and an end in knowledge or forgetfulness, etc., etc. Then it cannot be anantam. What does he say that? Satya anandabhyam saha visheshanatvam brahmanaha. So we should understand that when we say jnanam, jnanam includes satyam and anandam. When we say anandam, it includes jnanam and satyam. When we say satyam, the satyam includes jnanam and anandam. Without one, the other two are never applied because all the three are the same adjectives of the same thing of Brahman. So how do we understand that? It is what it is going to be explained in detail in the following parts. Nahi satyata anantata cha jnana kartrutve sadi upapadyeta. Padyete. Nahi satyata anantata cha. The satyam and ananta. Jnana kartrutve sadi. If the jnana has a kartrutva of knowing or awareness or apprehension, activity. Kartrutva means there is a act. No, what you call is that doership. Knowing as a doership, if it is being assumed, na upapadyete. You can never make it as a jnanam because jnanam has to be understood satyata and anantata cha in together with the satyam and jnanam. Satyam and anantam. Jnanam and satyam. Jnanam and anantam. Anantam jnanam. Anantam satyam. Like that, all the three has to work in tandem. Jnana kartrutvena hi vikriyamanam katam satyam bhavet anantam cha. Now the question is being asked by Acharya himself. Jnana kartrutvena. If we are saying that the doership of knowing, hi vikriyamanam katam satyam bhavet. Kartrutvam, if it is doership is there, then it has a beginning and an ending. Therefore, it is vikriyamanam. It has got vikriya, means vikara. So, katham satyam bhavet, how can it become satyam? And satya, how can it become anantam? Because the kartrutvam is within time and space. So, it is not infinite anantam. Yadi na kutaschit prabhivajyate tad anantam. Therefore, what is anantam? Now, he is bringing anantam also into the equation. Na kuchachis pratibhijhate tatanantam. Never can you bifurcate at any point of time. That is anandam. We think that anandam is infinity. Even if it is infinity, if it can be divided, then it is not infinity. Therefore, Acharya says that kutaschit na pravibhijyate. It can never be separated or bifurcated. Such a thing is what is called anandam. Because if it can be bifurcated, it will have a beginning and it will be delimiting the other one. But when it is not, cannot be divided. The known example for us is space. We cannot divide space, but space is also limited from the point of view of jnana. But for our understanding, that is the closest which we can think that which cannot be bifurcated. Yet we bifurcate them by room, the space in this room, space in the hospital, space in the house, space in the school, etc. but the space is never bifurcated. But we transact as if there is possibility to bifurcate space and create all sorts of notions of bifurcated space. And in fact, the whole wars, world wars, and everything is based on the division of the space, which we are thinking that it is my airspace, your airspace. How can there be a airspace which can be divided? That is when you have no possibility to bifurcate. That is called anandam. Jnana kartrutve cha neyat jnanabhyam pravibhaktam ityanantata na syad. Anantata na syad. There can never be infinitude when pravibhaktam ityanantata. If you have a possibility of pravibhaktam means bifurcation or dividing, by what? Jnana kartrutve cha neya jnanabhyam. Jnana karta, the knower, neya, the object of knowing, jnanabhyam, the knowing. If you think that you can divide that way, the knowing, then pravibhaktam, that will never become anantam. Please understand very clearly. The knowing, the known, the knower. If we are dividing knowledge in this format, then it will never become anantata, infinitude. Nasyad is now referring to the Chandogya Upanishad. Yatra na anyad vijanati sabhuma. Atha yatra anyad vijanati tadalpa. Iti Shrutyantara. What does it mean? Anyad vijanati. If there is, you have a knowing as anya, separate from you, anything which is known, even Brahmatjnana, you think that I am achieving Brahmatjnana or Atmatjnana, as like any other knowledge, any experience which we have in the world, we call it as an experience. Even we say that we have I had the experience of Brahman, I had the experience of Atma, I had this, what you call a intuitive knowledge, or it's like thousand suns, or honey or milk flowing through the head, Shirsha, the Sahasra Shirsha. Anywhere there is this bifurcation by the knower, known, and the known. I mean, these three way, the Vidis way, Yatrana, Anyat, Vijanadi, Anyat. Then that Bhuma, Brahma, can be only in such a place where there is nothing to be known separate from it, not as a knowledge which we achieve by meditation or through samadhi, or in Shravanamanana Nididhyasana. These are all, what are they doing? They are all removing the wrong notions or impediments which we have been building up about our spirituality and the knowledge. That aspects are being removed by Shravana Manana Nididhyasana or in dhyana, meditation, etc. But it will never give you the knowledge or the jnanam of Brahman, adjective of Brahman, where jnana kartrutva neya jnanabhyam pravibhaktam anantata. That infinite nature of where there is no knower, known, or knowing, only in such a state only that it can be infinite in nature, anantata. So there, that is why the Upanishad says that etrana anyat vijanati sabhuma. The moment you have the anyat means separation or differentiation from yourself. Where there is no differentiation from yourself, That is what is called Bhuma. Therefore, yatra anyad vijanati tadalpam. Where you have a knowledge which is separate from you, I am not a Brahmatjnani, I have become a Brahmatjnani, or I have become a knower of Brahman, or I have become what you call Atmatjnani or you Jnani. All these things are all notions or the stories created by the waker. That is why the Upanishad is rejecting it, saying that if you want to know what is Jnanam or what is Brahma as that adjective with Jnanam, that Jnanam has to be Anantam, where there is no Pravibhaktam, there is no separation. There cannot be any bifurcation of knowing, known, and known, and not that way. And it has to be Satyam. It can never undergo any modification or change. That state or that being or that pure knowledge which doesn't undergo any change, but it has to be there even now, this moment. This very, experience what we are having is not because of Brahman, it is because of our mind. But the Brahman, what we are talking about, is the one which is Satyam, Jnanam, and Anantam. And that which is that Brahmavit Apnoti Param, when the Upanishad started, one who knows Brahman in the form that it is Satyam, Jnanam, and Anandam. The Satyam will be Jnanam and Anandam Saha. Anandam will be with Satyam and Jnanam together, and that Jnanam will be together with Satyam and Anandam. One who has a clear understanding of this, he is a Brahmavid. Brahmavid Apnoti Param. So here the Purva Pakshi or the opponent is asking a question. न अन्यद् विजानाति इति विशेष प्रतिषेधात् आत्मानं विजानाति इति चेत्. Now if you are vishesha pratishedhat, if you are saying that it is not a vishesha or an adjective, then can't we say that atmanam vijanati iti, one is knowing himself. I know my atma, I am the I know I am atma, or that sort of a vijanati che. Na, Acharya says na. Bhuma lakshana vidhi paratvat vakyasya. Bhuma, what has been mentioned in the Chandogya Upanishad. Lakshana vidhi. What is the Lakshana vidhi? Yatrana anyat vijanati sabhuma. So I am Atmanam vijanati. I am knowing my Atma. If you have that type of a statement, then anyat vijanati. You are knowing it as separate from you, not as yourself, not as not as myself. There also vijanati. If you say that there is vijanati, or knowing, I know myself, or I am knowing my Atma, or I know I am Atma. If these type of statements are there, there is a doership of one who says I know. There is Jnaya Jnana. One is that known and other way of knowing. So I separate, then Atma separate, then knowing is the activity, kartrutvam. That is the way in which he said. That is then it is going against the Vidivakyam of the Chandogya Upanishad. Yatra na anyat vijanati sabhuma. Yatra na anyat pashyati ityadi bhumno lakshana vidivaram vakyam. Even na anyat pashyati. Not only anyat vijanati, anyat pashyati. You cannot even say that you are having a vision of something that way. That itself is against the definition of bhuma. Enna naitrana anyat pashyati. You are not seeing something separate. There is no separation. That then only the anantata will come. That is the way in which we have to understand. We have see, the thing is that one Upanishad when it is making a statement, it is not that it is making in isolation. It is taking into consideration the other Upanishads statements also, which may be apparently, contradicting, but only when Acharya type of commentators mention to us, we understand it in the right way. Yada prasiddham eva अन्यो अन्यत् पश्यति इत्येतत् उपादाय यत्र तत् नास्ति स भूमा इति भूमस्वरूपं तत्र ज्ञाप्यते. So here he is explaining the bhumaswarupam. Tatra tatra jnapyate. Jnapyate is the word is made to understand. By the definition of the Upanishad, where it cannot be understood or could be known, is being told by the Upanishad to say that what has happened? Anyo anyat pasyati ityetat upadaya. That it is rejecting that other one seeing as separation pashyati ityeta dupadaya tat yatra tan nasti, where there is such a thing not happening. That is the sabhuma iti bhuma swarupam. So Brahma swarupam is being mentioned in the Chandogya, saying that what is the prasiddham eva? The prasiddham is that anyat anyat pashyati. X is seeing Y. That is anyat anyat pashyati. Ityeta dupadaya. This is how it is understood in the world. Yatra tad nasti. In a state, in a place, or in a condition, or in a in a in a, in a in a reality where such a thing doesn't happen, means one knowing the other, whether you knowing your Atma, you knowing Brahma, or we knowing the Brahma, anything as seeing as separate, tatra na tatnasti sabhuma swarupam iti jnapyate. That is what is being shown by the statement that yatra na anyat vijanati sabhuma, yatra na anyat pasyati, yatra na anyat vijanati. All those things are statement from the Chandogya Upanishad, where Sharad Sanat Kumara is explaining to Narada. Iti tatra jnapyate. This is how it is being explained. Jnapyate means is being made to understand by the word, the statement of the Upanishad. Yatra nanyat pasyati anyat shrunoti anyat vijanati sabhuma atha yatra anyat vijanati tadalpam. Where the moment you have the anyat, the feeling of separation of second one, then it is alpam, it is limited, because the one will limit the other one will limit the first one. Anyagrahanasya prapta pradishedartatvad na swamina sorry na swatmani kriya kriya asti kriya astitvam aparam vakyam. What does it say? Anyagrahanasya, knowing something as separate from you. Pradisheda artatvad, that when it is being negated by the Upanishad's vakyam of the Chandogya. Yatra nanyat vijanati anyat shrunoti anyat janati. Like that, the statement. Pradish, that is all what is called the prapta pradishedartham. Na swa atmani kriya asti iti aparam vakyam. That very clearly shows na swa atmani, in oneself. Swa atmani means in oneself. Kriyastitvam param vakyam. There is no kriya. There can never be an activity in oneself. If we are making a state, I am seeing myself, or I am hearing myself, these are all not at the Atma level, but at the mind level. Therefore, Swa-Atmani Kriyastitvam Param Bhakyam. So, in that Jnanam, Anandam, Satyam, Brahma, there is no way in which these type of knowing can take place. Swatmani cha bheda abhavat vijnana anuvapatti. Why? Because in oneself there is no bheda. I am a total entity. I cannot have a bifurcation within myself. Therefore, in me, I cannot have any activity of knowing of any sort. That is what is very mentioned. Swatmani na cha beda abhava. Beda abhava means there is no there is no beda in one in atma in oneself. Therefore, vijnana anubhavati. Therefore, there can never be I know my atma or I know my nature or I know myself. That type of a none. Atmanascha vitneyatva jnatra abhava prasangaha neyatvenaiva viniyuktatvad. Atmanascha, in the Atma, Vitneyatva, then the understand the knowing aspect, Jnatra Abhava Prasanga. There can never be a knower in oneself. So that Jnatra Abhava Prasangaha. Neyatvenaiva Viniyuktatvat. In Neyatvam, in the knowingness or as an objective, I knowing myself as an objective, that also doesn't happen in the jnanam. So this is how the first aspect of Satya Jnanam Anandam is defined by Acharya Shankara in the beginning. Now the detailed discussion on that is followed from the next sentence, which where the Purvapashan is asking, Eka eva atma nyayattvena jnatrutvena cha ubhayatha bhavati chet. If ekameva atma, one atma, nyayatvena jnatrutvena, it becomes simultaneously the object of knowing and the knower of that object. Ubhayada bhavati chet, if both happens simultaneously in Atma, in oneself, bhavati chet, na yugapat anamshatvad. It can never happen instantaneously because anamsha, there is no bifurcation possible in Atma as knower and known as that type of a thing. We will take this paragraph in the coming class next Wednesday. So we will stop it here and take the question answer session. It continues. The same thing is continuing in the next class also. So we will deal it in the next class. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunattu Sahavidyam Karavavahai तेजस्विनावतीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः हरिः ओम् पूर्णमद पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः हरिः ओम् श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः हरिः ओम् थैंक यू धन्यवाद
Wow, Bindaji. That was that was that was a pure display to me of how what we call the path of knowledge can work. Thank you for your being extraordinary at this. To see how, I'm just sharing my view on this, to see how words and apparent learning of things and negating of things can actually be pointing clearly to the ever present, and therefore we could say that there's a path of knowledge that's very direct in the sense that it's not manufacturing anything new. It's just using the idea of knowledge in an extraordinary way. Thank you so much. That was one of a kind for me, and I don't think it can be learned how to be a teacher. I think it has to come directly from what's being spoken about. So, in the deepest way, Hari Om Bindaji, I'm very grateful for you. I couldn't help myself, anyone. So, forgive me for taking a little time to say that. Um, I've opened the, yeah, it's hard to speak. I've opened the chat and hand raising will be on. In a moment, I'll give Prakash, who we're very grateful to have here, a chance to speak. But this room is for everyone, and it's for the real purpose of trying to find out what we mean when we talk about realization and enlightenment and all these things. So please take the opportunity to come up and speak about the class with Bindaji or the earlier classes. And if you're new, join the house. Classes are on Wednesday and Friday at 8:30 p.m. IST, and an open Advaita Q&A with Bindaji's on Sundays. I'll say more at the end of the class, but please feel free to use this opportunity to actually be pursuing this most important use of a life. Thank you again, Bindaji. And Prakash, anything you'd like to say? And then people, please, I'm opening up the hand raising. Raise your hands.
Thank you, Artemisia. Pranam Bindoji. Very deep Manana Nidityasana today. I have only, I have no questions as such, just a clarification. When this kind of deep satsang about Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam, Brahman, and how that language is slowly constructed to deconstruct any kind of notion associated with some kind of I know or knowing, is that would that be considered for a sadhaka, a student, as a deepening of that manana nididhyasana? Because Sravana is limited to just these four states, right? So I just wanted you to expand on that. It's redundant, but I think it might be useful for for a student to hear from you how you interpret it in terms of manana nididhyasana. Thank you, Vendaji.
Thank you, Artemisha. Thank you, Prakash. This aspect of Shravana and Manana Nididhyasana, and especially in the light of Satya Jnanavanandam Brahma, has to be understood as the removal of wrong notions which we are harboring in our path of knowledge, saying that there is something to be known as Brahman or Atman, as apart from the reality or worldly. It is an objective knowledge or it's a realization, even though the Shastra and the Upanishad are not, Acharyas are using different terms like Aparoksha Anubhuti and, Jnanam and, Kaivalyam. All those terms which are being used are only to give a direction. These are all Lakshana Vakyas. It is never to be taken as what is called the Surupa Vakya. The Swarupa Vakya is what Satyat Jnanamanandam Brahma, what we are studying now. Once we understand that how to interpret the Satyat Jnanam Anantam as a combined adjective of Brahman, that is the one which is to be taken up as Manana and Nididhyasana, not what we otherwise understand as knowledge or jnanam, etc. And how does it do that? That is what it is saying, that it says that Brahman will be understood as that which doesn't undergo any modification or any change. And at the same time, it is neither an object of knowledge nor a thing to be known or an activity of knowing, if we are considering ourselves as a knower or trying to know it. But at the same time, ananyatvam, that is what is called anantada. Where there is a separation, known and the knower, then you are not in the same path. You have misunderstood the whole definition of Brahman. So it is very important that we repeatedly listen to the explanation and bring in our understanding all wrong notions which we had been harboring till now will have to be set aside and thrown out of our, ill-informed knowledge. Only then this aspect of what is Brahma will be understood properly.
Yes, thank you, Vindoji. So that was a very important clarification. The Lakshana Vakya and the Swarupa Vakya. So remembering that, and so one can say, apply the Nitya Nitya Viveka here, Vindoji.
Yeah, Nitya, Nitya, Vastu, Viveka, and all those things are in the initial stages, Prakash. We are now talking about the culmination. Culmination, there is no Nitya, Nitya. What is Nitya, Nitya? Yadna Vibhajarati. So all those things which we think that's changing is anitya. There is only one which is nitya, that is neither doesn't undergo any modification or change. That is the only one which is nitya. Nitya and satyam becomes one and the same. So these are all the way in which we have to see why the nitya nitya is taken. The initial stages is that in the world we have this transactional world, we have nitya and nitya things relatively. But when it comes to the Brahman, the word nitya and anitya becomes replaced with satyam and anartham. That is how it will be, you will be graduating that way.
Yes, thank you, Vindoji. That was a very important clarification about how this Nitya Nitya becomes Satyam. Thank you. Thank you, Vindoji.
Thank you, Prakash. Ganesh.
Namaste, Bindoji.
Namaste, Ganesh.
Today's class is very, very highly tricky for me, and at the same time, it is clarifying, rather enlightening, I should say. All the three Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam are mutually complementary, and Satyam cannot be worked out without Jnanam and Anantam, and the same case with Jnanam and Anantam. With the other two only we have to consider them. So in the process of contemplating on these aspects, will all these things or the explanations what you have given and the kind of in the meditational process, will all these things amount to neti ultimately? So with that, Neti itself finally something we become that, and there is nothing more to see as Satyam separately and Jnanam separately and Anantam separately. And even cumulatively also, finally, nothing remains to see. Is it that? Is my understanding correct?
Yeah, you're correct in your understanding. That neti thing is only the, as I was telling Prakash, the Satyam, Nitya, Nitya Vastu Viveka, and Neti Neti are the initial stages where we use them for our, you know, segregation of what we should not be thinking as real. So that is where the process of Neti and Vastu Viveka or Nitya Nitya Vastu Viveka, all those things will come into it. But here it is more of a contemplation of the simultaneous aspects of Satyam, Jnanam, and Anandam. How we should see one without the other not applicable will not be the right explanation. Then it becomes transactional. If we use only Satyam or if we use only Jnanam, that is why most of the time when the Jnanam is being discussed, we misunderstand that Jnanam in the mind or anything called as an experience, we call it as Jnanam or awareness, or, even if the Brahman experience, what we call it as, it is not a Brahman experience. There cannot be a knower, known, and the known knowing aspect, or that, then only that Anandata will come. That is the most important aspect of it. And when all the three have to be understood, one is complementary to the other two, and all the three are applicable simultaneously. Then only you will get to know the exact nature of Brahman.
So, most of these things are to do with what should not be misunderstood, uh, and thereby contemplating on what is to be understood.
That's right.
Thank you, Binduji. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ganesh.
Hari Om Binduji. Can I go ahead?
Yeah, Venkat, go ahead.
Binduji, this is a good segue today with that Brahma Lakshana Vakya. That whole thing, that segue was nicely placed in that Satyam Gnanam Anantam Brahma. This is a Brahma Lakshana Vakya. There, the where Satyam was easy to get, and Gnanam was the most confusing among all, because it is not a Gnanam in Manas, and that Gnanam Japtihi Avabodha, and then that elimination was well placed. You cannot have Gnanam without Satyam and Anantam. That means there is the elimination of Triputi itself. The Triputi in the Gnana Kartutva. I think the Triputi is eliminated straight up. And it is leading to that bodha. The closest is in my language, it's called arivu. That's the most knowing is the closest when the triputi is knocked out. Pure knowing without triputi. That bhava sadhano gnana shabdaha. While it is told, why we didn't go to chit aspect of Brahman, it's also Lakshana Vakya. Or is chit is not Lakshana Vakya? That's a question I have. While there is a smart elimination of every other possibility and leaving it with Anyad Vijanati Tadalpam, very well articulated, Binduji. But why there is no attempt to equate Gnanam with Chit aspect of Brahman?
You're muted, Bindaji.
That is, sorry, thank you. It is to be understood that, Jnanam is being explained as Achidrupata. Achidrupata means not as a Jadam. Chit and Jada. What is that? So Jnanam is not being referred as Chit here directly, but when it is being referred at this known, the knower, known, and the knowing aspect, when it is negated, we will have a tendency to imagine that the Chaitanya or the knowing which we are familiar with in our mental framework, that as a reference to the Chit or Chaitanya aspect of it. We are all walking, we eating, all that, the pulsation of life is what is considered as Chaitanya by many people. Even that is not Chaitanya. Here what it is talking about is Nyati Rupa. Nyapti means no knowledge without any attributions of any nature of no known, knower, known aspects of it, plus the act of knowing also. So there is no way knowing of Brahman, because that is a jnana swarupa, nyati rupa, avabodha. Bhava sadhana means existence in the form of existence, knowledge in the form of existence. That is what it is referring to. Knowledge in the form of existence means being existence or knowing existence, or we have a limitation of words when we come to that aspect of it. So that is why Acharya also is using multiple words, so that we are not misunderstanding that his commentary. Nyapti, Avabodha, Bhava Sadhana, like that, the three words which are being used is only from that point of view. So the Chit or the Chaitanya, what we are referring to, we are always considering it as the pulsation of life, or Chaitanya nature. Here we are not even talking about it, because that Chaitanya and everything is only from the transactional point of view. The life or the Jada and Chetana, what we call, is again from the transactional point of view. Here it is a state which there is no transaction. Yatrana anyat pakshaji, anyat vishunyoti, anyat vijanati. There is no otherness in that one. Ekatvam anupashyata. There is only oneness in that one. That oneness has no way of becoming the knowing aspect or known thing or the knower, any of those type. It is a jnana swarupa. And jnana swarupa cannot be called as a chit or a chaitanya. Because chit and chaitanya, the moment we use it, we will bring in the transactional aspects into our mind. To avoid that only, that word is not used here.
Got it, Madhuji. So Gnana Lakshana is a better way than that. There is a Yatra Nanyat Vijanati Sabhoma Atayatra. That Bhoma is maybe the closest taken here. Okay, Binduji. So I'm going to the next one, that Purva Paksha, right? Nanyat Vijanati iti Vishesha Prati Shedhat Atmanam Vijanati iti Chet. That we see statements like I am that I am. Those statements need to be again examined in this light, where that there is no Dvaita. There is no I am itself. The Aham Pratyaya versus Atma Pratyaya. I think sometime back we referred it in earlier discussion. There is no Aham Pratyaya in this, while stating even I am that I am itself may become redundant in this. So it is even eliminating that I am itself. Is that the fair understanding?
Yeah, you can say that way. See that the question of I amness also is not there. That is where the beauty lies. In. The individuality is a misapprehension of the snake on the rope type of a situation. That is what is to be understood.
Right, Manoj. I think this is far more clear. Thank you for taking us through this very critical aspect of Gnanam. Thank you, Manoj.
Thank you, Venkat. Srini?
And then, oh, may I, Pindo?
Yes?
I just wanted to comment on what, and anyone else who's up here is welcome to do this at times. We're formal, but we don't need to be overly formal. I just wanted to thank you, Venkat, because, you know, I've said this at times is that I understand why Bindaji says that a word like Brahman can be problematic because people tend to turn it into something, even if they're not turning it into, say, a god per se. But I also find the word consciousness being used so much as a stand-in for the word Brahman. I think it's exactly what you were trying to negate in a way, because it's almost impossible, in my view, to use a word like consciousness and not associate it with our individual experience of awareness. So I felt like you cut right into that, and I really appreciated it so much. And if I've said anything that's misleading, Bindaji, please go ahead. But I just wanted to say that I think this is really important because, again, this is just my view, and you can correct me if you feel differently, Bindaji. But I feel like I see people get waylaid when they realize that in their own personal experience, everything does pass in and out of their own personal awareness, so to speak, but that's not really the end point that's being reached for. Thanks for letting me take a few minutes.
Yes, Atmisha, you're right. In fact, there are people who have asked me also that experiences, what experience do you have? And when I say that any experience is in the realm of transaction, so I don't accept any experience of mine as the experience of that, because that is beyond experiences. It cannot be experienced. It is something what it is, and we should understand that what we are thinking, what we are, is because we don't know what it is. Therefore, we think we are the individual with consciousness, and as you rightly said, we get waylaid with the imagination of the mental activity as a consciousness or awareness. But that is not the reality. The reality is beyond that. We have to learn all the three together: Satyam, Jnanam, and Anandam. Then only we will know that what is that, where these three can be applied simultaneously without contradicting one another. That is more important thing.
Thank you, Bindaji. Sorry to make you wait, Shrini. Go ahead. It's all yours.
Th- Thanks, Anish. Namaste, Binduji.
Namaste,
So,
Srini.
thank you for a very beautiful session. Just wanted to ask if we take only the Lakshanas of Satyam and Anantam, Akasha will meet the criteria, right? Is it fair
Yes.
to say like that? Okay.
Yeah,
And so,
Akasha will meet.
yeah. And so, what Venkatji said is, yeah. So, somehow feels like the Jnanam is a differentiating factor in that one. Yeah. So, and also I think it is the emphasis is more on the indivisibility, right? Like the other way where they say sajatiya vijatiya swagata beda rahita. So these kind of the indivisibility is stressed in multiple ways. I think today's session also there is a huge stress on the, though many philosophies others also use the Brahman as indivisible, but I think in this the absolute nature of the indivisibility of Brahman is put to a lot of stress. Do you think so, Bindoji?
True, absolutely right. That is how it is to be understood. Indivisibility in even any of the, even an iota of separation, if you have in that knowledge or in understanding that, then you are not apprehending that properly.
Yeah, I think other expressions like Prajnana Ghanam, and I think yeah, I'm looking forward. I think even in this Upanishad and Brihadaranyaka also, I think those kind of expressions also come to mind. Even somehow remembered that Gita line of Sutre Manigana Iva, and also I think fascinating that most of the thing revolves around the indivisibility aspect also.
Yeah, even the word in the Bhagavad Gita, Ananyas Chindayanto Mam Ye Jana Paryupasate, Tesham Nityadi Yuktanam Yogarkshemam Vahamyam. It may be simple, but that Ananya way of apprehending that is very important. That is how the whole Upanishad has to be understood.
Yeah. Sometimes I think one of the better examples to give is a big boulder, which I don't know, but we know that boulders are broken by some cranes and all. But yeah, that kind of indivisible, that ghana, prajnana ghana feeling, I think that that helps me understand, at least understand indivisibility a bit better. I feel so.
Yeah, this Prajnana Ghana is a very important word that comes for understanding, but that to comprehend it in the mind is very difficult. That Prajnana Ghana, how it can be.
Thank you, Vindaji.
Thank you, Srini. Vinod,
Namaste, Binduji.
namaste.
Yeah. So I had this question. See, normally one of the things that we say, a knife cannot cut itself. Yeah? Okay. That's typically one of the examples that we give
Yep.
for the nature of the absolute. So it requires something to reflect on itself and things like that. But I think that I didn't find that thing here today's class at least. But do you feel it has any relevance, or what do you how do you place that here? Uh, in the
Yeah,
sense that
that
it
word.
actually comes under logic, and here it's bypassing the logic also. The
Mm,
most beautiful aspect that I heard today, and I don't know why other people don't highlight this at all. Okay, so in
yeah,
that context, I was asking this example that knife cannot cut itself, is more logic in nature. So in that context, I was asking this question.
yeah. So the knife example is not used here because the word anyat is to negate for the knowledge aspect of indivisibility. So this example of knife by itself can be used if it is required. I mean, that is one thing which can be used for explanation, but Acharya Shankara doesn't use that here. But it is a logical statement. But here you have to understand more of it from the point of view of that. How do we make the three adjectives of Brahman, Satyam, Jnanam, and Anandam, concomitantly and simultaneously be applied, and how do we see that when we are giving importance to one, we do not disturb the other two, or we do not diminish the value of the other two. That is the way in which it is important given here, rather than the anyat, that one cutting itself or one knowing itself as a logical statement. That is good for the showing the anyat aspect only, but that doesn't will not answer the other two aspects the logical way.
But
Yeah,
Binduji,
thanks,
here
Sridharji. Yeah.
logic collapses. If, for example, Anoriyan Mahato Mahiyan, even smaller than the smallest, larger than the largest, there's no logic. Logic collapses. Basically, we can't get the worldly logic into the realm of that Brahma Sarupa because the logic simply collapses. So that validation, I think Shankara uses in a way differently by helping eliminate. He's helping eliminate that tripudi in a way that logical at the same time applies to the Brahman as a darshana, that inner experience. That way it is used. The logic is maybe higher logic. The worldly logic is, this like a nitya nitya viveka, but then there is a vastu vastu viveka. If you apply vastu vastu viveka, then this doesn't work. But nitya nitya viveka, then it might work, but it is not exactly what you explained to Prakash ji. You may not apply because it is already applied when you that Lakshana Vakya combined with Brahman, that was the position taken. Then from there, the rest is built upon. Look like the way Shankara tried to navigate, Shankaracharya, navigate here is more profound. I think that's line of thought need to be taken. Hence, the understanding can be profound.
Right, Venkat. But more of explanation is coming in the following verses, following statements of Shankaracharya, because we need to completely understand that. How does the Satya Jnanam Anandam, and how do we know Brahman, or how do we understand Brahman, or how do we, where are we when we know Satya Jnanam Anandam Brahma? Are we anywhere close to understanding what does the Upanishad say, or even the explanation of Shankaracharya being studied seriously, whether we are able to make any headway? That's very difficult to say that.
Guru Mukhena Bindoji, it will come Bindoji. So Guru is here, so it will come.
So, well, I don't want to. Oh, I see
I have
Srini wants to speak, and maybe.
one small
Yeah,
question.
let's try to keep to the time somewhat as much as we can. But go ahead for sure, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask Binduji, the way these are Tatastha Lakshana, Swarupa Lakshana of this Satyam Jnanam Anantam. Now, what about the terms like Sarvajna, Sarvashakti, Samanvita? Are they also equally discrete, like the functioning the way Satyam Jnanam Anantam are functioning, or are they any technically different? Omnipotence, omnipresence, whatever, I forgot the other one. Yeah. Presence or something. Omniscience, yeah.
They are different because that comes from the other aspects of multitude. See, even Upanishad uses that way. Sarvam khalu idam Brahma. So it is talking about multiplicity, or uh,
Yeah, I think in
where
Mundaka it describes as Sarvajna, Esha
yeah,
Sarvajna, something like that, right? Yeah.
Mundaka is there, and even that yatnyatva sarvam idam vitnyadam bhavati. So that sarvam, knowing by which everything becomes known, that type of a statement are also we have studied in the Upanishad. So that is a different aspects which is being. It's not going to contradict with the nature of Brahman. We will understand that once we go through the complete explanation.
Sure. Thank you, Binduji.
Thank you, Srini. I didn't want to. I wanted for sure that you had the opportunity, but I also know today is a good day to try to be timely. So, just so that everybody knows, and if anyone's new here, please join the house. And usually we meet at Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday at 8:30 a.m. Sorry, 8:30 p.m. 8:30 p.m. IST, which is the same as 10 a.m. Eastern time on the same day. And Wednesday and Friday are the Upanishad classes. The replays are here. I personally really strongly recommend on this Upanishad that you at least go back to the first replay, the prior class before today, and today's class, if you didn't hear them all, to be able to move further into this chapter 2. And then we have the general Advaita Q&A at the same time on Sundays here. And maybe others like myself actually have even more thoughts about what happened today. You're welcome to bring those up on Sunday also. What else? Replays are here. Vindaji also has a YouTube channel with many of the Upanishad classes that aren't even on replay here. You can find that under the YouTube channel's handle, which is Advaitic Talks, as it's always been. But it also has a new name for the channel that you can search, which is Advaita Retold. Bindaji has renamed it, and I think that's a perfect name for what Bindaji is doing with Advaita for us today. And most more than anything, thank you, Bindaji, for finding the time and the energy in your life to be with us. Prakash, do you have anything to say? And then please, after Prakash, Bindu, you just close us out.
Yes, thank you, Artemisia. I think a big thank you to Bindoji for taking us very gradually into the aspect of how one does the inquiry and what kind of effort. This is so subtle, but where is the effort needed and where the effort is not needed? It's so vital in this way of discourse. So I have to say this is a truly a Gurukula in Clubhouse, right? And the Gurukula means the teacher guiding the students. And so students have to go and repeatedly listen. Otherwise, it's so difficult to get the full import as we go deeper. So, and he keeps reminding us that you can't conclude anymore. You're not supposed to conclude. You're supposed to just keep working with what is available. So thank you, Bindoji. Thank you very much. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Atmisha. Thank you, Prakash, Ganesh, Venkat, and Srini for question and answers at this. Thank you all. Hari Om. Namaste.
Hari
Hari
Om.
Om. Good night.
Good night, Bindaji. Thank you.